popular spot. Damn it. Blow the...
They warned us about Shawn Pomrenke, but we didn't listen. On screen, he was the fearless Mr. Gold of Bering Sea Gold, pulling riches from the icy depths of the Bering Sea. Off-screen, the warning signs kept piling up: reckless decisions, scandals, and shattered trust. Was he just a victim of fame, or was there always something darker driving him? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the glitter, the chaos, and the man who divided a community. Stay tuned, because this story will change the way you see Shawn forever. On March 26, 1975, in the harsh and unforgiving environment of Nome, Alaska, Shawn Pomrenke was born. Nome wasn't exactly the dream hometown. It was a place battered by extreme climate conditions, brutal blizzards, infrastructure challenges, and isolation. Yet it was also home to one of the richest gold mining traditions in American history. His father, Steve Pomrenke, had already stepped into the mining world, and all Shawn had to do was walk the path his father had laid. By the age of 14, Shawn was already learning the ropes of mining, while other kids his age were playing games. But let's rewind for a moment. Before Nome, Steve had lived a very different life in Minnesota. He worked as a diesel mechanic in St. Cloud, ran a repair shop, drove trucks, and lived a working-class life. With his wife, Catherine M. Gray, he raised 3 children: Shawn, Eric, and Nikki. In 1986, with dreams of a better life, Steve moved his family to Nome. At first, he worked as a mechanic, reviving dead machinery for a construction company. But soon he struck gold for the very first time at Anvil Creek. That was it. The spark of gold fever hit, and a new family legacy began. By the late 1980s, Steve Pomrenke established Northwest Gold Diggers, LLC, bringing his son into the fold. Shawn learned everything from operating heavy machinery to reading geological formations, and eventually helped build the operation around their most famous dredge, the Christine Rose, a massive barge-mounted excavator designed for large-scale dredging in the Bering Sea. The vessel, named after a relative of Steve's, became the crown jewel of their mining success, capable of pulling massive amounts of gold-rich sediment from the ocean floor. But here's the thing. While his father approached mining with a sense of community, respect, and cooperation, Shawn came into the business with a completely different mentality. He was aggressive, competitive, and willing to push boundaries. In Nome, the mining community had always been built on mutual trust, handshake deals, and helping each other in times of need. But Shawn's methods, larger-scale operations, legal maneuvering, and an obsession with maximizing profits, disrupted the balance. At first, Shawn Pomrenke's new methods didn't look too dangerous. Bigger dredges, more aggressive tactics, less focus on the old handshake deals of Nome's mining community. It all seemed like the natural evolution of a growing business. But underneath that glossy surface, resentment began to build. The other miners could feel it. Shawn wasn't just competing, he was rewriting the rules. He wasn't interested in community. He was interested in domination. Whispers started circulating. Miners who had once welcomed him now exchanged wary glances when his name came up. People talked about how he disregarded environmental concerns, ripping up seabeds in ways that others thought reckless. Some said he was too willing to edge out competitors, even if it meant cutting corners or stepping on toes. Others just didn't like the way he carried himself. Arrogant, untouchable, fueled by the belief that he was destined to be the king of Nome's gold fields. In a town where mining was more than just a job, where it was a way of life tied to history and tradition, Shawn was tearing apart the unspoken codes that had held the community together for generations. Nome miners had always prided themselves on respect, cooperation, and lending a hand when things went wrong. Shawn's cutthroat style was like a spark in a dry forest, and where there's smoke, there's usually fire. The fire came in December 2012. That winter, Shawn's reputation collapsed in the most public way possible. Backing out of a parking lot, he struck a pedestrian carrying groceries. But instead of jumping out to help or even showing a shred of concern, he drove off. To the horror of onlookers, he even flashed a thumbs up as he left the scene. For a community already skeptical of his character, this was beyond shocking. It wasn't just reckless, it was callous. Cold. The police didn't take long to catch up. Shawn was arrested and faced multiple charges: driving under the influence, leaving the scene of an accident, driving without insurance, and assault in the third degree. Each charge chipped away at whatever was left of his reputation. For many in Nome, this was the final straw. They no longer saw him as just an aggressive businessman. They saw him as dangerous. But here's the thing. That wasn't even his first brush with trouble that year. Months earlier in 2012, Shawn had been stabbed in a bar fight. The details were unclear. Some said jealousy sparked the confrontation. Others said it was just another example of his hot-headed behavior. But one thing was certain. Wherever Shawn went, chaos seemed to follow. What had once been whispers about his confrontational nature was now undeniable public record. By 2013, the pattern had only grown worse. Shawn was arrested again, this time for another DUI. The circumstances were even more alarming. He was caught driving over 100 miles per hour down Nome's highway, weaving recklessly through traffic without using turn signals. Once again, he was drunk behind the wheel. This wasn't a man making mistakes. This was a man who seemed addicted to chaos. And while his personal life spun further out of control, the cracks in Shawn Pomrenke's professional empire became impossible to ignore. The once powerful operation that had thrived on the back of the Christine Rose dredge no longer looked invincible. Suppliers whispered about unpaid invoices stacking up. Contractors complained of delayed payments that left families struggling. Business partners described bitter disputes that turned once promising deals into disasters. Safety violations piled up too: broken equipment, ignored protocols, and shortcuts that put crews at serious risk. In the deadly waters of the Bering Sea, safety was supposed to be sacred. But to Shawn, it seemed optional. Still, the cameras never stopped rolling. Bering Sea Gold, launched by the Discovery Channel in January 2012, had become a breakout hit, drawing between 800,000 and 1.5 million viewers each week. The show thrived on danger and high stakes, and no one embodied that more than Shawn. Instead of pulling back from his controversies, Discovery leaned into them. His arrests and reckless behavior weren't treated as warnings. They were edited into drama. And for television executives, drama always meant ratings. But for the people of Nome, this was real life. They had to deal with the consequences. Environmental concerns piled up, with accusations that his dredging practices were damaging fish populations and destabilizing coastlines. Financial red flags stacked higher, and unpaid workers struggled to support their families. The uneasy peace that had held Nome's mining community together for decades was crumbling. Then came the inevitable collapse. On March 19, 2019, Pomrenke Mining LLC filed for bankruptcy in the Alaska Bankruptcy Court. The filing revealed years of financial mismanagement, including unauthorized withdrawals totaling $52,000. The empire that had once looked untouchable fell apart under the weight of debt, lawsuits, and broken trust. Employees lost jobs, investors lost money, and the Nome community bore the brunt of one man's reckless ambition. For Shawn Pomrenke, bankruptcy wasn't just a financial loss. It was the crumbling of a reputation he had built, piece by piece, since he was a teenager working alongside his father. By then, colleagues had distanced themselves, suppliers had cut ties, and miners no longer trusted him. The so-called Mr. Gold had become a cautionary tale. Yet, here's the twist. Despite it all, he remained a central figure on Bering Sea Gold. Even after bankruptcy, even after multiple arrests, even after countless controversies, Discovery Channel continued to feature him. Because for television, controversy sells. Ratings matter more than redemption. Over the years, other cast members like Emily Riedel became fan favorites, often promoting responsible mining practices and building strong followings on social media. But Shawn, with all his flaws, remained the lightning rod for drama. And as long as viewers kept tuning in, Discovery kept the cameras rolling. The legacy of Shawn Pomrenke is complicated. On one hand, he was a talented miner, skilled at extracting gold from one of the harshest environments on Earth. On the other, he was a man whose aggressive ambition, reckless behavior, and questionable decisions led to personal and professional ruin. His story is not just about one miner or one show. It's a reflection of what happens when profit, fame, and ego outweigh community, responsibility, and accountability. And that's the story of Shawn Pomrenke, the man who turned gold into glory but also into chaos. Now it's your turn. Do you think he was a victim of fame or always destined to self-destruct? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more untold stories behind reality TV legends. Stay tuned. The next reveal is coming soon. Thanks for watching.